Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's Tech Talk. We are excited to continue hosting this monthly YouTube live event. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Axoff. My name is Anna Maria Toronto, and I'm delighted to introduce Jesse Lopez. Jesse is one of my colleagues, and he will share his perspectives on today's topic. I'll ask him a couple questions to keep the conversation flowing, and it looks like we've already got some questions from the audience to address as well. So here's just some housekeeping items to keep in mind is that we record this session and we will make this recording available to everyone so that you could review it and share it with your colleagues. If you do have any questions that emerge during the discussion, feel free to use the chat feature and Jesse and myself will address them towards the end of our discussion. With that, I will turn it over to Jesse. He joins us as a channel sales manager with Axoff. He's been with Axoff for over a year and a half, and he's got a really exciting story to share regarding his experience, I would say, playing for the Texas Rangers.
There you go. Hey, yeah, that was the dream, right? So I tell you what, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Anna Maria, for allowing me to be here and share my perspectives. And yeah, absolutely. When I was 12 years old, I won a contest from Wendy's of all places, and they had a contest out there to allow me to go on the field on the Texas Ranger field. This was old Arlington Stadium. This was before even Globe Life. So I ran out there on the outfield and I had the ability to catch three fly balls. If I caught all three of them, then I would win the entire stadium a free Coke. So good for me. I caught all three of them. In the event of catching all three of those, I also won 3 weeks of free food from Wendy's. So that was awesome. So that's kind of my biggest Major League Baseball moment. I was 12 years old.
That's exciting. And Jesse, what happened before they had that third ball coming to you? What
Oh yeah,
announcement
great
did they
question.
make?
Yeah, great question. So, over the PA system in front of, well, we're talking the Rangers. So there was probably only about 15,000 people there, but still 15,000 people, they make the announcement, hey, if he catches this third one, everybody wins a free Coke. So, just a little bit of pressure there. But I was happy that I was able to come through for that.
Well, congratulations, and thanks for sharing this awesome story with all of us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, turning to the topic at hand, it's mid-November. It's exactly November 15th. So, we're well into the fourth quarter of 2022. Jesse, in your experience, how can a company ensure that they close out this year on a positive note?
On a positive note, yeah, great question. So one of the biggest things I think that we can do is analyze data gathered over or through the company KPIs over the last 3 quarters, right? That's absolutely one of the main things that we can do. If we're not analyzing this data, we're absolutely missing out on opportunities to improve on each quarter throughout the year. So those KPIs are critical information to help us not make the same mistakes that we made in the first quarter in the last quarter and as we move into the new year. In addition to analyzing those KPIs, we can analyze customer feedback, internal experiences. Partners are changing and their requirements are changing all the time. We definitely want to review those types of things. And then one last thing I would say is one very important thing is that it's extremely important to recognize those employees that may have, exceeded or met some of those benchmarks that we're looking for. This is definitely going to give a boost to the employee and company's outlook for the new year. Now, if we're doing some of these things, I think we're taking the right steps to close out the year in a positive note.
Awesome, awesome. And recognizing the employees by essentially, metaphorically catching three fly balls in front of a
Yeah,
packed
absolutely.
stadium.
There you go. That's right.
Now,
Success is what we're looking for.
now, when companies are starting to document what's happened in the prior year, usually they use a couple phrases. One is keys to success, which is kind of, what went well and why. And then the other is lessons learned, which is what didn't go well or what didn't happen and what may have driven those situations and unfortunate results. Can you explain, how these ideas can help companies best prepare for 2023?
Sure, absolutely. I think when you're assessing 2022, you want to ensure there's time given to, those lessons learned, like you said. Just harkening back to the answer before, the KPIs and the gathering of data throughout the year. Companies need to have the ability to identify what are those opportunities or what are some of those areas that we have an opportunity to improve and how and why. So that's definitely one of the things that we want to do, and this is the way we grow as a company, right? This is the way we grow, just reviewing all the data that we're gathering. Now, in addition, there must also be attention paid, just like you mentioned, to those things that were a success, right? Analyzing our successes, determining what were the key factors of that success is vital. Why? So we can wash, rinse, and repeat, right? We want to allow those successes and the things that we're doing to duplicate, or so we can duplicate those drivers throughout the new year and throughout the fourth quarter. So as we prepare for 2023, companies should be communicating their vision, right, for the new year ahead of time. This allows everyone in the organization to understand any new expectations that might be the results of disinformation that we've gathered over the last, 3 quarters and things of that nature. Also, it's going to allow them to align on early priorities, which we can execute in January and Q1. So, with a solid plan for the coming year and strong communication of that plan to our employees, the employees are going to be highly motivated. I know when I hear the plans for next year, I get really excited, right? So I'm highly motivated to hit those new KPIs or those new expectations for January and for Q1. And it makes it really easy to buy into the plan if we have all that information beforehand. So I think during Q4, is definitely the time to start communicating that. And it's just going to strengthen the company culture. It's going to reinforce the priorities, for the coming quarter and for the new year. Especially if at the end of the year we have a lot of employees that are maybe taking time off, right? Before they take that time off, they're going to know exactly what the plan is for 2023.
That's a great point because there's the Thanksgiving upon us, the festive season in December. So, with that, how can companies still optimize their operations, especially with potentially a slimmed down staff of in office and field based employees over the next few weeks in
Yeah,
light of
great.
potentially, increased customer demand too?
Sure, sure, absolutely. So, market research, right? I can't tell you how valuable this is to a company as they look to optimize some of those operations for the coming year, right? Market research, internal employee satisfaction surveys, those types of things, voice of the customer studies, feedback from partner companies. We definitely want all that information. These are examples of market research that have proven to be really beneficial to companies trying to streamline its processes for the last quarter and the coming year. So companies can also outline early wins for 2023 during the final months of 2022. I think it's a great statement because what we want to do is we want to know what are we shooting for January 1st, right? What's a great January going to look like, and what does a successful Q1 look like, right? If I know that in November, that's going to give me all of November and December to not only have a great fourth quarter, but also be looking forward to that January and Q1, to those Q1 goals. Now, lastly, one of the most important things companies can do is collect detailed information from their field operations teams. I know you mentioned that, right? The field operations. What are we doing out in the field? Those are our frontline guys and gals, right? So collecting data from the frontline sellers, field staff managers, and utilizing those insights to determine how you can better coordinate and communicate with your field and office based employees is absolutely critical in optimizing those final months of the year. So I think what it's going to lend itself to is uh, a successful Q4 and starting the new year off with a bang.
So what are the risks if a company does not do everything that's being discussed today? So, what if they just want to continue business as usual, maintain the status quo? What happens to them from, say, a competitive standpoint and a customer experience standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've touched on that a couple of these things already, right? So, without strong communication, we made it a point to say, we need strong communication throughout the last quarter to help us in January and Q1 and to help us finish up the year strong. So, strong communication of the 2023 vision and priorities and priorities. If we communicate those to our employees, if we, oh, I apologize, if we don't communicate those to our employees, we have the potential of the employees to be unclear or confused, maybe even in the dark of the business results for 2022 and then the plan for 2023. We definitely don't want that to happen, because one of the biggest things that this can lead to is wasted time and wasted valuable resources, right? Our most valuable resources are employees. We want them to be in the know, and we want them to be, hitting on all cylinders, right? And the only way we can do that is to communicate. Now, how do we do that, right? Not using the right kinds of data as the basis for sound decision making can lead to ineffectiveness and stagnation, which you mentioned, right? How do we become stagnant? Well, if we're not collecting the right data, then we're going to be stagnant. That's how it is. A lot of times this happens when we're collecting that decision making data manually, right? If we're collecting it manually, what I'm maybe we're using a paper survey that gets passed out and then hopefully it gets returned right within the next week. Then it has to be entered into the data mechanism. Whatever we're collecting that handwritten manual data on has to be looked at for accuracy, all those types of things. It could be February before we know what the data is in November, right, that we collected in November. So we definitely don't want to wait until November to try to set a good goal for Q1. Those are some of the challenges that we could run into.
Definitely. And you mentioned, it's behooves the company to really optimize the time, the resources, the people, the processes that they have to maximize productivity. And data is kind of the, say infrastructure, if you will, of doing
Sure.
things differently going
Sure.
forward. What role does digital transformation play in terms of collecting, processing, analyzing, and using the data?
Yeah, great question. So in my position as a channel manager, this is something that I've come to learn and come to see. And you know, digital transformation helps companies collect more data, and it helps them collect way more dynamic details. This is what we're trying to get, right? We're trying to get the details of why the business is functioning the way it is, whether it's functioning in a positive way or in a negative way. We need that data. So without the need for paper-based forms or processes, multiple parts of the organization can experience a more streamlined, process. So saving of time and money in certain aspects of your organization can absolutely help, support those new year and end of fourth quarter initiatives. So collecting employee and customer feedback via digital surveys or questionnaires helps you analyze those responses and that information in an easy way. No longer are we having to manually do all this, and it's not centralized. It's just got paper everywhere. So it's definitely a no-brainer. If you're not collecting data digitally, you're not positioning yourself for success at this point.
So that brings up another question, which is Axoff. So how does Axoff then play a role in helping companies collect this data digitally and in a much more, streamlined, easier, and cost-effective manner?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So Axoff, the Teamworks platform that Axoff, provides has features that are, digital timekeeping. Some of these features are digital timekeeping, digital forms, GPS tracking, job dispatching, all of these things, intra-company messaging. We even offer API integration, and it's all housed in one user-friendly portal. So, those are some of the ways that we can help these companies. Digital forms and reports that are managed in one centralized platform help that information be processed and analyzed a lot more efficiently. This is a streamline of all those outdated process that we mentioned earlier in the call. Mobile or digital timekeeping, a lot of people understand that as, what is that? What is a digital timekeeper? Well, I tell you what, it gives you the ability to clock in and clock out from the field, right? So if we're clocking in and clocking out from the field, that might give us an extra hour to complete the job. If we're getting more jobs completed, just because we're clocking in and clocking out from the job site instead of coming to the office, we're maybe putting in more revenue into the account, right? That takes us. If I could give you one job per week per employee, because now we've streamlined that process, think about some of the revenue that's going to put back into the business. So, again, GPS tracking, we know we can, it gives us the ability to understand where our people are at all times, out in the field, and that may be a catalyst for identifying hidden inefficiencies or missing opportunities to optimize the workforce while they're out there. So if we're not using that GPS, we may be missing out on identifying some of those inefficiencies and some of those opportunities. And another thing that we talked about was, or that we mentioned, was job dispatching. I mean, this is something that's amazing, to be able to push out these new work orders to people that are out in the field and get them to their jobs in a more dynamic way with, again, those dynamic details that we're talking about. Not just a text message or a phone call that maybe I have to remember, but a list of things that, can be communicated to our field workers. And then the last thing I would mention is that API integration is one thing that is really amazing about, the Teamworks platform. Being able to exchange data with other third-party apps, rather than having to manually enter all this information, saves time, money, and headache. So, there's a plethora of things that are offered through Teamworks that can help digitize a company's entire workforce.
It looks like we have a few questions from the audience. First one is, how does a business put into place its year-end plan once it's been established? What are some best practices there?
Yeah, some best practices that I've seen is communication, right? First and foremost, communication. Communicate the goals, initiatives, and different stages of the plan for 2023 to each department in your company and track the progress. Those are those KPIs. We've got to track the progress. And once we're able to do that, we can use this information that we're gaining in real time to adjust the workflow. Where do we need it and where do we need more? Where do we need less? And things of that nature. So that's going to also lend itself to setting reasonable expectations, well communicated deadlines, and this is going to position our business for continuity and sustained growth there in 2023. I think those are some of the best practices that we can see.
Excellent, excellent. And I have one more question in the interest
Okay.
of time, which
Sure.
is data. So where is it heading? Why is it so important that it's part of the foundation for a business plan, as well as something to rally an organization behind for the
Yeah,
future?
absolutely. Absolutely. Data is the single most important indicator of what is working well and what could be improved on in the business, right? I'm going to go ahead and repeat that. Right? Data is the single most important indicator of what is working well and what could be improved in your business. If we're not collecting the data, we're just not in the know. So this can come in many forms, including, duration of certain projects. How long is it taking, right? What impact are those projects having on revenue, right? How is our revenue stream, impacted by the time, on those projects? And then in addition to that, what customer needs or are requesting, and where money may be unnecessarily spent within the organization. This is all things that we can collect data on and make business decisions that are going to be, leading us into success.
Terrific, terrific. So to sum it up, it sounds like data is everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Digitizing and streamlining one's operations just leads everyone to making smarter and sharper decisions for the future. So I want to thank everyone for attending today, as well as forwarding this on to your colleagues. Jesse, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences, your insights, as well as a little bit of your backstory too, for all of us in attendance. And before we wrap up, Something for everyone to keep in mind is that Teamworks, our exciting Axoff platform, is offering a 14-day free trial. Please reach out to us for more information on how to get started, as we are eager to support you in wrapping up this year on a high note and kicking off 2023 in the best way forward. Get in touch with us today via our URL or our phone number. Once again, thanks, everyone. All the best for a wonderful Thanksgiving and a happy and healthy festive season. Take care.